Senate will come to order. All those not having privileges of the floor will please vacate the chamber. Those in the gallery and those on the floor will please rise as we led in prayer by David Lavender, Senate Assistant Doorkeeper. Please remain standing after the prayer as the senior senator from the 8th leads us in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Lavender.
Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, we are thankful for this day that you have provided, a day that hopefully each of us in some way will use to be a blessing to others. May each of us practice kindness, respect, and compassion in our interaction with all that we come in contact with daily. We thank you for these men and women who serve our state in leadership roles. We also are thankful for their families who too have made sacrifices due to their service. Lord, we ask that you bless them and guide them in their work, and may they always seek your direction. We pray that they may accomplish great things for the people of the state of West Virginia. We pray these things in the name of our Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you. Senior Senator from the 8th.
Let us remain standing and let's recite the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Reading of the Journal.
West Virginia Legislature Senate Journal, February 24th, 2021. The Senate met at 11:03 a.m. Senator Blair, Mr. President, in the chair.
The senator from Pleasance requests unanimous consent that further reading of the journal be dispensed with and the journal be approved. Is there objection? Chair hears none. Further reading of the journal is dispensed with and the journal is approved. Introduction of guest. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today, watching virtually, we have Francine Rada. Francine lives here in Charleston. She's one of our AARP volunteers and one of the many AARP Redcoats that work to make voices heard of those age 50 and plus and their families. Will the Senate please give her a warm virtual welcome?
Further introduction of guest. Communications from the House.
The Clerk of the House announced the passage by that body of committee substitute for House Bill 2094 relating to the juvenile restorative justice programs.
The message will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary.
House Bill 2184, increasing the penalties for exposure of governmental representatives to fentanyl or any other harmful drug.
The message will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary. Communications from the Executive.
There are none.
Reports from standing committees.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration Senate Bill 5 relating to claims arising out of West Virginia Consumer Credit and Protection Act and reports back a committee substitute for same and committee substitute for Senate Bill 392.
The report will be received? No.
Senate Bill 392, creating penalty for impersonation of law enforcement officer or official, and reports back a committee substitute for same, with the recommendation that the two committee substitutes do pass. Respectfully submitted, Charles S. Trump IV, Chair.
The report will be received.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration Senate Bills 160, 161, 162, 163, 164, 165, 166, 167, 168, 169, 170, 171, 172, 173, 174, 175, and 176, Alcohol Beverage Control Commission rule relating to private club licensing, and reports back a committee substitute for same, with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass. Respectfully submitted, Charles S. Trump IV, Chair.
The report will be received.
Your Committee on the Workforce has had under consideration Senate Bill 248, requiring DHHR collaborate with Workforce Development Board and West Virginia Division of Personnel for purposes of job placement, and reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass, but under the original double committee reference, first be referred to the Committee on Finance. Respectfully submitted, Roland A. Roberts, Chair.
The report will be received. Senior Senator from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the second reference to the Committee on Finance be dispensed. The bill has no financial impact on the state budget.
Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered.
Your Committee on Economic Development has had under consideration Senate Bill 311 relating to acquisition and disposition of property by Urban Development Authority, and reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass. Respectfully submitted, Chandler Swope, Chair.
The report will be received.
Your Committee on Agriculture and Rural Development has had under consideration Senate Bill 339, expanding types of agriculture operations that are protected from nuisance and other legal actions, and reports back a committee substitute for same, with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass, but under the original double committee reference, first be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary. Respectfully submitted, Dave Seipolt, Chair.
The report will be received, and under the original double committee reference, the bill will be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary.
Your Committee on Agriculture and Rural Development has had under consideration Senate Bill 359, informing landowners when fencing that may contain livestock is damaged due to accident, and reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass. Respectfully submitted, Dave Seipolt, Chair.
The report will be received.
Your Committee on Economic Development has had under consideration Senate Bill 368, authorizing DEP to develop reclamation and abandoned and dilapidated properties program, and reports back committee substitute for same, with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass. Respectfully submitted, Chandler Swope, Chair.
The report will be received.
Your Committee on Finance has had under consideration Senate Joint Resolution 4, Incorporation of Churches or Religious Denominations Amendment, and reports the same back with the recommendation that it be adopted. Respectfully submitted, Eric J. Tarr, Chair.
The report will be received. Reports from select committees.
There are none.
Introduction of bills. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that Senate Bill 444 through Senate Bill 458 be considered introduced, read by their titles, and referred to the appropriate committees as shown on the chamber automation system.
The Senior Senator from the 17th requests unanimous consent that Senate Bill 444 through Senate Bills 458 be considered introduced, read by their titles, and referred to the appropriate committees as shown on the chamber automation system. Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. Resolutions.
There are none.
Motions. Petitions.
There are none.
Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent to return to the fourth order of business.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. Reports from standing committees.
Your Committee on Pensions has had under consideration Senate Bill 459, originating in committee, relating to return of deceased members' contributions to heirs in certain circumstances, and reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass. Respectfully submitted, Eric Nelson, Jr., Chair.
The report will be received. Unfinished business.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 6, naming the U.S. Navy Seaman Second Class Wilbur Webb Hahn and John W. Hahn Memorial Bridge.
Question is on adoption of the resolution. Is there discussion? If not, the question before the Senate is adoption of the resolution. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the resolution adopted. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 9, naming the Haney Family Veterans Memorial Bridge.
The resolution will be referred to the Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure.
Senate Resolution 9, designating February 25th, 2021 as Fairmont State University Day.
Senator from Marion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask unanimous consent that the resolution be taken up for immediate consideration, committee reference be dispensed with, and the resolution be put upon its adoption.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. The question is on adoption of the resolution. Is there discussion? Senator from Marion.
Mr. President, I'll be brief. I know we got some folks from our Fairmont State University watching us virtually today. It's the crown jewel of Marion County. It's something that we have been so extremely proud of. That university has been around just about as long as our state has. When you talk to faculty, when you talk to staff, and more importantly, when you talk to students, they're extremely proud to say they work at or got their degree from Fairmont State University. I have two children, Mr. President, on a personal note. They both graduated from Fairmont State University. It's a local icon. It's an institution that we are just so proud of and so proud to send our kids to if we live in North Central West Virginia particularly, because they can stay home a little longer, get a great education, and move on with their lives. And I want to close, Mr. President, by just reading the mission statement of Fairmont State University. And it's short, it's sweet, it's to the point, and I think that this is what makes us over and above when it comes to higher education. Fairmont State University is a comprehensive regional university committed to educating global citizen leaders in an environment distinguished by commitment to excellence, student success, and transformational impact. That's what Fairmont State's all about. That's why we love it, and I ask for your support on adoption of the resolution. Thank you, Mr. President.
Is there further discussion? Senator from Brooke.
Mr. President, I want to stand with the Senator from Marion there and just recognize Fairmont State. There's no secret I'm an alum of Fairmont State. I graduated from there in 2003. Anybody here sees me every day wearing this Fairmont State mask each day here in the Capitol building, and I'm very proud to be a Falcon. I had the opportunity to talk with a group of students on Tuesday and with the student government this morning virtually, and I told them that a lot of people say, oh, well, I went to college and my life was changed and I went on to do X. Well, for me, I can point to one very specific and precise moment where the trajectory of my life was changed because of Fairmont State, and that was a professor that I had, Dr. George Sprouse, who poli-sci was not my degree, it wasn't my major, and I had him for an introductory class, and it's something I had always been interested in, and through the time of the course, he asked me to stay after class one day and said, you know, you really seem to be very interested in this and good at it. And I said, well, I like it. I've always been involved in politics or interested in it. He said, well, I think you should change your major and be a political science major, and I think it'll really open up a lot of doors for the things you want to do. And I did. A month before my fourth year, 2 months before my fourth year of college, I changed my major. And because of that conversation with Dr. Sprouse that day, it completely changed the direction of my life, and I've always owed that to him. And I think going to college in Fairmont is very unique. The community, the city, my friend from Marion can certainly attest to this. You really become a part of that city, of the city of Fairmont, who loves the college and loves the students and making them feel at home. And so I join him in this resolution, and I urge adoption.
Is there further discussion? If not, the question before the Senate is the adoption of the resolution. All those in favor will say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the resolution adopted. Bills on third reading.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 7, limiting political activity by public employees. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Senator from Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee substitute for Senate Bill 7 would insert a new article in the West Virginia Governmental Ethics Act, and it's designated as Article 4, and under the bill as it's before us, it has 4 sections. Mr. President, the Governmental Ethics Act now prohibits public officials and public employees from using their office for personal gain. There is some overlap between the new act and what's already regulated by the Ethics Act, But the new, this bill and the new article that we would put in the Governmental Ethics Act addresses a specific area, and it addresses political activity by public employees and public officials. And so while it is true that under some advisory opinions that have been issued by the Ethics Commission, the use of office by a public official for personal gain has been interpreted to be broad enough to preclude some political activity, this will embed such restrictions and regulations in the Governmental Ethics Act. And it's important that we do that for public ethics and public integrity. The first section of the new article is a section addressing, it has legislative findings and purposes. And it makes some findings. First of all, we start out with a finding that public employees and public officials have the right. They don't lose their right because they're public employees or public officials to vote as they choose to vote and to express their opinions on political subjects, political matters. Before the but, the finding makes the acknowledgement that these rights are fundamental. They're constitutional fundamental rights. The restrictions in Senate Bill, Committee Substitute for Senate Bill 7 reply to a narrow area of law and time that I'll come to in a minute. But we also make a finding that I think this is important, Mr. President, in that first section, that public employees should be protected from being utilized for partisan political purposes in the discharge of their duties. And so that's what this bill does and distinguishes. The second section includes definitions, and the guts of the new article is in section 3, which provides limitation on political activity by public employees and public officials. And so it starts out by making clear that these restrictions that we're putting in the Ethics Act, if this becomes law, are in addition to such other restrictions or rules as may exist under federal law or state law. But what the section prohibits is a public employee or a public official engaging in political activity, one, while on duty, or two, while using a vehicle owned or leased by the state of West Virginia or an agency or a political subdivision thereof. And then section 4 includes the violations of the act and penalties. And basically what this does, Mr. President, it would allow the Ethics Commission to apply the same sanctions, penalties, remedies as already exist under the act for the use by a public official of his or her office, public office, for personal or private gain. And it leaves to the employer of the public official or a public employee questions of termination or removal or both of that employee from his employment. Mr. President, I'll be happy to try to answer any questions. Otherwise, I urge passage of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, the question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor will vote yea. All those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the motion. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, 34 yeas, 0 nays, and 0 absent not voting. More than a majority of those present and voting voted in the affirmative. I declare the bill passed. The clerk has a title amendment.
Senator Trump moved to amend the title of the bill.
The question is on adoption of the title amendment. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the title amendment adopted. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 42, creating Zombie Property Remediation Act of 2021. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Senator from Mercer.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill gives municipalities and county commissions in cases where vacant and abandoned properties are encumbered by a mortgage the ability to work with the bank and move the property to foreclosure in a much more timely fashion than could be done before. Urge passage of the bill, and we'll be happy to answer questions.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, the question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor will vote yea. All those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, 34 yeas, 0 nays, and 0 absent not voting. More than a majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative. I declare the bill passed. The clerk has the title amendment.
Senator Swope moved to amend the title of the bill.
Question is on adoption of the title amendment. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the motion or the title amendment adopted. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed Senate Bill 396, providing limitations on nuisance actions against fire department or EMS fixed sirens. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Senator from Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 396 would amend one single section of the code. It is Chapter 29, Article 12A, Section 5. And Article 12A of Chapter 29 is the Governmental Tort Claims and Insurance Reform Act. And this section, Section 5, addresses immunities from liability. And so in the law as it exists already, it provides for certain circumstances where political subdivisions of this state are immune from liability. And this would add to those immunities protection for nuisance claims, and the new language is including but not limited to the use of fixed sirens for purposes of fire protection or emergency medical services. So, Mr. President, this is similar to a bill that the Senate considered and passed last year, but the idea behind it and what this bill will do will say you can't sue the fire department because the siren's too loud when it goes off. I'd be happy to answer questions. Otherwise, I urge passage of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there further discussion? If not, the question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, 34 yeas, 0 nays, and 0 absent not voting. More than a majority of those present and voting have voted in the affirmative. I declare the bill passed. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House. Bills on second reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 53, providing person criminally responsible for another's death may not be involved in burial arrangements.
Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the bill lie over one day.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 80, allowing for administration of certain small estates by affidavit and without appointment of personal representatives. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
The bill will be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Engrossed House Bill 2019, elevating economic development and tourism department. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
The bill will be advanced. The bill will be engrossed and advanced to third reading. Bills on no. Bills on first reading. The senior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Our question now is consent that all bills on first reading be considered read a first time and advanced to second reading.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. Introduction of guest. Remarks by members. Senior senator from the 6th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Prior to last session, I was contacted to see if I was interested in becoming the legislative chairman of the West Virginia Congressional Prayer Caucus. I was honored to be asked, and I gladly accepted. We are blessed to be legislators in a state where embracing faith, religion, and Christianity is not frowned upon. When I ran for office, I vowed to protect religious freedoms. And as long as I'm a part of this legislature, we will encourage and invite new legislators to join us in helping protect faith and freedom for all West Virginians. The United States lies at the threshold of a significant crossroad, either to acknowledge and embrace our spiritual heritage or to plunge headlong into an amoral vacuum that seeks to deconstruct much of what is considered sacred. It's up to us to ensure the latter doesn't become a reality in our state. Legislative prayer caucuses are a part of the American Prayer Caucus Network and patterned after the Congressional Prayer Caucus, which is a bipartisan and bicameral caucus of the U.S. Congress. They pray together in room 219, which is a room right off the Congressional House floor. Their efforts far exceed prayer as they initiate key legislative strategies and act as frontline defenders of faith in our nation's capital through strategic public and private initiatives. Their list of accomplishments is impressive. The American Prayer Caucus Network, which consists of nearly 100 members in the Congressional Prayer Caucus, over 900 legislators in over 40 states, more than 100 allied organizations, numerous business leaders, local government officials, and hundreds of thousands of activist citizens supported by the National Strategic Center and the Congressional Prayer Caucus Foundation. This morning, you should have received in your Senate email an invitation to join the West Virginia Legislative Prayer Caucus. Please fill out the application. We've already had many members join. Our state director for the caucus is Pastor Mitchell Bias. My vice chair here in the Senate is the senator from Wood. My counterpart in the House is Delegate Evan Worrell. Each day, 15 minutes before the floor session, the Senate Prayer Caucus will meet in the Senate President's Conference Room to discuss important legislation and end with a prayer each day, exactly how we did it last session. Starting next week on Fridays, we will have a joint meeting with the House Prayer Caucus at 10:30 in room 252, the McManus Room. Religious freedom is under attack at an ever-increasing frequency, and I'm asking for you to join the West Virginia Legislative Prayer Caucus so we can join together to make a positive impact. There's more information on your desk. Thank you, Mr. President.
Further remarks by members. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just request unanimous consent that the remarks regarding Senate Resolution 9 by the senators from Marion and Brooke be printed in the appendix of the journal.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. Further remarks. Senator from Marion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to just chat a little bit today about the past, if I might, and I hope I don't get too much criticism for that. You know, we've been meeting with the governor, as your party has, Mr. President, talking about ways to advance West Virginia and talking about his plan to reduce or eliminate personal income tax in West Virginia. And we've been having some good discussions about that, and hopefully we'll get somewhere that works for West Virginia. But, you know, Mr. President, back when the majority party changed, two things that happened that everybody promised would bring prosperity and jobs to West Virginia, and that was the Right to Work bill and the repeal of the prevailing wage bill. And I believe, I'm going from memory here, so don't hold me to this, I think it was Senate Bill 1 and Senate Bill 2. I think that was the most important pieces of legislation that the majority party wanted to move forward. I wrote to the Secretary of Commerce at that time, and I asked him, point blank, in all your discussions trying to bring business into West Virginia, has anyone ever told you that enacting right to work in our state would bring them here? And the answer unequivocally was no. It never came up. But we pressed forward, and it was all about jobs, 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 and how the floodgates was going to open, and you better get out of the way because West Virginia is going to prosper when we do this. Well, guess what, Mr. President? The governor, a member of the majority party, said yesterday, and it was on Metro News, a Brad McElhaney tweet, that right to work didn't work, and repeal the prevailing wage didn't work. And I say that because I was across the hall then, and it was the most divisive pieces of legislation I have ever experienced in my career here. The halls were filled with West Virginians begging us not to do this, but we did it anyway. And in the House, it never had bipartisan support, but it had bipartisan opposition because there were members of the majority party and members of the minority party who said no to those provisions. And I bring that to our attention today, Mr. President, because I hope that we can move beyond the major divisive issues that we've had in the past, and we can work together as one and bring common sense and data that is meaningful, I like your position on moving broadband forward. I think it's amazing. If we don't do that, West Virginia will never go forward. So I ask, Mr. President, and your leadership team to think about what we do, and let's just think about West Virginians and try to stay away from those issues that divide our people, that divide our state. I think everybody wants the best for West Virginia. I know sometimes we take different paths to try to get there, but at the end, we should try to work as one and do what we believe is right for the state of West Virginia. Mr. President, I appreciate the time. Thank you very much.
Further remarks. Senator from Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to speak on the same issue as our senator from Marion County. Those were our first couple of years here, Mr. President, 2015 and 2016, when right to work and prevailing wage were at the top of the agenda both years. We had some battles. I can remember sitting here and arguing with the few of us that are left from those years about the lack of evidence supporting right to work. That Mississippi had been right to work for 50 years and was the only state we could count below us. I'm sure you remember those. And that it was just a way to starve our labor unions and cut down on their ability to work with employers for the betterment of our citizens. Prevailing wage came with promises of millions of dollars in savings and quality construction. I think we failed on both of those points. And I think it's weakened our contractors and skilled labor across our state because they no longer are able to compete with out-of-state workforces that employ perhaps less than full citizens and take other shortcuts with their labor force. We just had a Kroger's built in Harrison County, and not that it makes any difference whether we had right to work or prevailing wage, it wouldn't apply, but our skilled labor force has become so weakened that not one West Virginian got 1 hour of work on that job, with maybe some minor exceptions. The workforce came from Georgia. How they can afford to pay for lodging and transportation and still underbid our workforce is beyond me. Of course, we know how it is. They don't pay anything to their workers. So I remember during those debates that there were promises made or vows made that if it didn't work, we'd repeal them. We'd take it back. We'd admit that we were wrong and be the bigger people in the room and say we were wrong. We'll repeal it. Mr. President, I ask you to do that, and I ask this body to do that. I think both should be repealed and restore the prestige and the ability to make a living wage to our skilled workers in West Virginia. Thank you, sir.
Further remarks? Senator from Randolph.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm not really going to get into the specifics of which piece of legislation may or may not have turned a corner for West Virginia, but I do want to point something out. One of the statistics that we've always struggled with here in West Virginia is a statistic known as a workforce participation rate. And when we took control, when the majority party took control in 2015, ours was by far the lowest in the nation. No other state was even close. Pre-COVID in 2020, West Virginia hit the highest workforce participation rate, according to the St. Louis Federal Reserve, that it's ever had since the St. Louis Federal Reserve started checking those statistics back in about 1930. So I won't say that any specific piece of legislation caused that exact change, but there's a number of things that we've done that are a part of a mosaic of pieces that needed to be done. Clearly what we're doing is working. It doesn't mean everything is perfect. We're still working through it, but to say that it had no effect is simply wrong. So I just wanted to point that out. Thank you, Mr. President.
Further remarks? Senior Senator from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, we had in Finance Committee hearing the other day, we had Secretary Ed Gaunch, Secretary of Commerce, come in and talk about economic growth in West Virginia. And it was asked about, you know, we've been hearing announcements pretty frequently now about openings here and openings there. The governor traveling across the state to announce the new bout of jobs coming in. And he said in committee, he said, it is truly amazing to him. He's never seen anything like it. The level of interest of international and national business to come to West Virginia. So I wonder when the last time is that this body got to hear somebody get up in front of one of our committees and say, it is astounding how frequent we are now opening businesses in West Virginia. So one of the other things that's happened is that since 2015, when the majority party came in and started working on conservative fiscal policy, conservative economic policy, conservative tort reform, what's happened? The income per capita raised in West Virginia over $5,000. Average family household has raised well over 10% since then. Our workforce participation, as the senator just mentioned a second ago, has skyrocketed relative to anything we've ever seen in West Virginia. So why in the world do we now consider a personal income tax? Well, first of all, I would say that anybody listening and tuning in, you need to really pay attention to what I had just said, is that the body that's here now, that is putting legislation forth, has seen for the state pre-COVID an incredible growth that we've just not been able to go in and say we've seen before. Went from a $450 million deficit to, instead of raising taxes to control that, cut spending, tightened our belt, and now we see state surpluses that are in the hundreds of millions. So why personal income tax? I'm very, very pleased that from the leadership in the governor's office to say that now is the time to eliminate the personal income tax. Being finance chair, you know, that's you start hearing that, you start doing some research pretty quickly because you know you're going to have some lifting to do. Personal income tax represents 43% of our annual budget. It's $2.1 billion about. That's the people of West Virginia. We have about a 1.8 million population. That 43% of our budget, just the personal income tax side, you have to work here in West Virginia to pay that tax. It's about 800,000 people. About 800,000 people are carrying 43% of our state's budget just on their personal income. It doesn't count on what they're going in. They're also taking that money they've earned and then going and consuming things that also have a tax on them in West Virginia. So the burden on them is well more than the 43%. So why would personal income make a difference? When you start looking at the states, and there's only 9 of them in the country that don't have a personal income tax, they have workforce participation rates that just blow the doors off West Virginia and other states that have a personal income tax. Their gross state product blows the doors off other states, the rate of growth of that gross state product off of states that have a personal income tax. The income per capita, the rate of improvement in income per capita in the states that have no personal income tax far exceeds those, and it's actually almost an inverse proportionate ratio. The lower your personal income tax goes, the higher your rate of growth on income per capita. The higher your personal income tax goes, the lower the rate of growth on personal income per capita. The other thing we look at is a problem that I bet everybody in this chamber, when you've sat in front of somebody in your community and you're talking about what's the one thing that you really need to do? Well, you know what? Population growth. We really got to go in and solve. We were losing population in West Virginia. And I've heard senators say the things that we've done haven't affected that. Well, you know, that's a population rate. Let's look at what affects population rate before I go into how personal income tax affects population rate of growth. You either have people who come in or people that go out. You have people that are born in the state. You have people that pass away in the state. So what can we affect? Health of individuals is probably going to affect when somebody passes. We can affect, are we going to affect birth rates? Good, healthy birth rates, so that you got somebody that survives when they're born is important. The biggest thing that we can impact is bringing in working families. If we bring working families into West Virginia, childbearing age, we hit 2 of the metrics. We import, and you got people who are having children, who likely will also stay here. So when you look at the metrics associated with those 9 states that have no personal income tax, their rate of population growth, West Virginia, to give you an idea, has lost about 3.7%. The rate of population growth of those 9 states on average is 6.5%. So we can, if we just reverse the 3.7, we get to 0. They're at 6.5 above that. The correlation, there's a former Federal Reserve chairman, and I'm losing his name, I'm trying to think of it here, that he had an article a while back. He said that there's a 40% correlation to personal income taxation on rate of population growth. Now, 40% doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're talking about taxation being something that affects population growth, that's an incredible number. So to give you an idea, so we're an energy producing state. If you look at other energy producing states, that GSP, and the other thing I forgot to mention is the GSP that also affects is a very similar correlation. So our GSP is very heavily dependent on a very volatile source, our extraction. So that GSP, as it goes up, you tend to have population growth. As it goes down, you'll tend to have population loss. The greater dependence you have on the extraction, the greater dependence there, the greater volatility there is to that. So why eliminate the personal income tax? We are on the East Coast. You go east of the Mississippi. The states New Hampshire and Florida have no personal income tax. When you look at the business climate, the taxation climate for business, by the Tax Foundation, they had an article that just came out that rated the top states that for top business climate. 6 of the top 7 states in the country have no personal income tax. Best business climate in the country. So I guess what I'll come back to is we've seen the metrics grow based on legislation that has passed through this body. Now, I think somebody who says that right to work didn't affect population growth here in West Virginia has a severe misunderstanding of business. I may have an interest to put a business, let's say here in Charleston, and I'm looking at why would I put it in Charleston, say, versus Columbus? And say West Virginia or Columbus changes a policy that's in favor of what might help make that decision. That doesn't mean the day that that becomes law that I'm able to open a business there. There's incredible planning, because I tell you what, opening a business is risky. I don't care where you do it. So the more risk I can avert and vet that policy is going to be consistent, tort is going to be consistent, that my workers are going to be able to have a consistent job to go to because the policies aren't disrupting it, the more likely I am to get more confident in the decision of that location. And I was sworn to confidentiality, so I won't say who this is, but I can tell you, I had a conversation very recently, came back and said, Mr. Chairman, I just want you to know, talking to a global company, we have been really paying attention to what's happening in West Virginia. He specifically mentioned the policies, a lot of the policies I just mentioned. He said it is really being seen. It's seen across the country. It's being seen on an international basis. And we are about ready to dump tens of millions of dollars into West Virginia because of what we're seeing in jobs, in infrastructure, the buildings that support those jobs, all the equipment that comes to support those jobs. So why personal income tax? One, right now, as we have the pressure density on those working individuals in West Virginia to carry the burden of the state, there's opportunity to lighten that burden and put more money in the pocket of every West Virginian. Create more job opportunity in this state for every person who is eligible to work. And have a better wage for doing it. So, it just, when I hear arguments against it, why you would not do a personal income tax, why we would run away from policy we know has been creating jobs in this state, why run away from policy that's been increasing money in the pockets of West Virginians, that's absurd. I'm not running away. I'm charging through this thing like a bull. Thank you, Mr. President.
Further remarks by members? Senior Senator from the 16th.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, many times we always look for a silver bullet. You know, if we can only do this, the world will be a better place. We always look for that silver bullet that will change everything drastically. Sometimes we're lucky in the sense that something comes along and does make a revolutionary change. But if you really dig behind it, actually there was a number of other events and other activities that actually builds to that moment. You know, buildings aren't just built by just waving a wand. They're built by brick, by brick, by brick, making right decisions many times. Mother Teresa often says, you know, God doesn't call us to do great things. God calls us to do small things with great love. It builds. You know, every session we start off with the economic outlook from WVU. And we always listen to that because it's very good information, and they produce a report. John Deskins provides that for us at the WVU John Chambers College of Business and Economics. And in that report, you know, he talked about the workforce participation, and one of the issues that is dealing with this is the addiction epidemic is rampant. We talked about that yesterday. But I want to read something out of the report, a recommendation. And this is from his report. It says, economic development strategies should focus on ways to improve health outcomes, lower drug abuse, and advance educational vocational training opportunities in the state to make West Virginia's workforce more attractive to potential businesses. Well, let's look at the bricks that we've developed. Just this week, we passed out a bill that actually politicizes public health. Putting public health in the hands of the political elite and taking it away from the people. Does that actually help improve health outcomes? Yesterday, we passed an intermediate court that helps insurance companies and businesses and so forth, but we deny any type of funding at all for drug treatment court that actually works. Actually, the reason we have drug treatment courts doesn't have anything to do with West Virginia money. It's all federally funded. If the funding goes away, those courts go away. Then those judges give their volunteer time because they believe in it. Only 26 counties actually have it. And then it says in vocational, it says here, and the advanced educational and vocational training opportunities in the state. I'm hearing a lot of talk that we're going to cut back on higher education. There are bills out there to take away public education. I mean, folks, what bricks are we building here? Are we looking for that single silver bullet? If only we would take away the income tax, the world would be a better place. I'm not disputing that. That might be a huge brick. But if the other bricks are crumbling, it's not going to build the structure. Now, this is what I'm saying. We have to look at what we're doing, not just the one and done. We got to systematically build a structure as was proposed to us over and over again about looking at ways to improve health outcomes, not decrease it. Ways to lower drug abuse, not ignore it or just give lip service to it. And advance educational vocational training opportunities in the state to make West Virginia's workforce more attractive to potential businesses, and not sit there and propose that we're going to cut higher education and cut public education. What are we doing? Mr. President, I would ask that we really take a look at all the legislation that we had. At one time, we talked about having a jobs assessment. Is this legislation going to create jobs or cause loss of jobs? And I'm going to say there's been pieces of legislation that passed this body that could go counter to what the recommendations are, even in our West Virginia economic outlook. So, Mr. President, I ask that we be conscious of our decisions as we actually vote on it, to see how does that align with the vision that I think we all share, and not always expect that one piece of legislation or a silver bullet is going to change the world. That we look at it building this structure brick by brick, and every brick is very important in the structure, just as every human being in West Virginia, every human life is important in West Virginia in building our community in our state. Thank you, Mr. President.
Further remarks, Junior Senator from the 8th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think what the senator from Marion was trying to get at, and it should be something that we should all try to do, not just here in this chamber, but through our daily lives, is admit when we're wrong. The work participation rate for West Virginia, we are the second worst today. Right to work, prevailing wage, those numbers were supposed to go up. I don't know why anyone would think that, because the only state that's worse than us is Mississippi, and they're a right-to-work state. Those programs, when leadership changed, those bills, that legislation, the public was promised that it would bring jobs to West Virginia. It has not. Those policies don't work. I'm not a member of the Finance Committee. That's probably a good thing. But I don't doubt that Senator Gaunch says there's more interest in West Virginia. But I doubt very seriously he said to anyone, through his testimony or otherwise, that there's more interest because of the right to work and prevailing wage laws that were passed 4 or 5 years ago. Let's not mix apples and oranges here. Let's be straight. Let's talk about the facts. Let's be honest with the public about these policies and whether or not there's been an impact or whether or not there's been growth. I'll be happy to look at anyone's statistics in that regard. I haven't seen it. Let's talk about population. In 2019, we lost 10,000 folks. From 2014 to 2019, 57,000. Maybe that's why our production has gone down, because people are leaving our state to get jobs somewhere else. The policies that the senator from Marion talked about were policies that have been in place since 2014. Again, let's be honest about what we're talking about. The wage growth, I wish I knew what the numbers were on that, and I'll be happy to look at any numbers that say that there's been wage growth in West Virginia. But I have 2 questions to ask. Whose wages increased, and how dispersed was it? Because when you talk about wage growth, if it's just an average, that doesn't suggest to me that the economy is good necessarily. We have to know where that wage growth is. I'd also like to know whether or not how much wage growth there is just as a consequence of inflation. I don't doubt that there's been wage growth, but what is it a consequence of? And then the other thing I would just like to say, because I think this may have played a role in it, just a couple days ago, we were talking about teachers' pay. I'm sure that bumped the numbers in wage growth in our state. Let's not forget that those wages were increased only for 2 reasons: the grit of the teachers and the determination of this caucus. Thank you, Mr. President.
Further remarks by members. Senator from Mercer.
Thank you, Mr. President. We just heard that there is no statistical proof that right to work has brought jobs to West Virginia. Well, that's quite logical, because that's something that's very difficult to prove with statistics. There are many reasons why companies make decisions to come to one state or another. Right to work is only one of them. So it'd be very difficult to credit that one issue with bringing a specific job to West Virginia. Now, I was in the construction business for many years, and I've got a lot of personal experience that lack of right to work drives jobs out of West Virginia. I live in Mercer County, and about 50 years ago, Mercer County built an industrial park. At about the same time, Bluefield, Virginia built an industrial park. There are about 4 miles between them. For probably 40 years or 4 decades, I've worked with the economic development officer in Mercer County when they were trying to recruit a business to come to the industrial park. They would ask me questions like, what would it cost to build this or that for the infrastructure that the proposed company would need? And I would work up budgets for them. I've done this half a dozen times a year for decades. And some time later, I would go back and say, what happened to so-and-so that we were working with to bring to our industrial park? And nearly every time the answer immediately was, you mean I only have to drive 4 miles to get to a right-to-work state? See you later. That happened not once or twice, but literally dozens of times over decades. So I'm confident that lack of right-to-work law is a deterrent for people to come to West Virginia. And the right-to-work law opens that door. The fact that it's difficult to prove statistically doesn't change my mind about the importance of the right-to-work law. Also, I work with lots of economic development offices throughout the state. And if you ask any economic development director in any county in the state or at the state level, if you ask them the question, is right to work on the list of check boxes that businesses bring here before they decide where to come, they'll tell you that right to work's usually in the top 5. So you can't say it's an insignificant issue. And it's very difficult to prove how many didn't ever come here or even try to come here simply because we don't have right to work or we do have right to work. I'm a firm believer that that's one of the best things we've done to help grow the economy of West Virginia. Thank you, Mr. President.
Further remarks? Miscellaneous business. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Pending announcements, I move the Senate stand adjourned until tomorrow at 11 a.m.
Are there announcements? Senator from Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on the Judiciary will meet today at 3:00 p.m. in the Judiciary Committee room in the West Wing.
Senator from Jefferson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Education will meet today at 2 p.m. in room 451M. The agenda has been posted.
Senior Senator from the 4th.
Mr. President, your Committee on Finance will meet today at 3 p.m. in room 451M. We'll have budget hearings on seniors and the veterans.
Senior Senator from the 6th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Government Organization will be meeting today at 2 p.m. in room 208 West.
Senator from Marshall.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Health will meet today at 1 p.m. in 451M with the attention, we have a lot of guests from a lot of different places. Our intention is to do recess if we don't finish our bills and come back in the evening.
Further announcements? If not, the question before the Senate is the Senate stand adjourned until 11 a.m. tomorrow. All those in favor will say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the Senate adjourned.
The House will please be in order. All those persons not having privilege of the floor will please vacate the chamber at this time, and members and guests in the galleries will please rise as we are led in prayer this morning by the gentleman, the 26th, Delegate Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Heavenly Father, your word declares that we will not be afraid nor dismayed because you are our God. Right now, Lord, we pray for leadership guidance for every member of the House. In Jesus' name, I pray that they will exercise faith, knowing that you will strengthen them and help them. You, Lord, will uplift them with your righteous hand. Thank you in advance for your divine strength for our members. Thank you for your guidance. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. If all members and guests will please remain standing, we'll be led in the Pledge of Allegiance by the gentleman, the 42nd, Delegate Longnecker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Please join me as we publicly acknowledge our loyalties and our allegiance to our exceptional nation. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Members and guests may be seated. Reading the Journal.
Journal of the House of Delegates, Charleston, Wednesday, February 24th, 2021.
Gentleman, 32nd, Delegate Haynes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent that further reading of the journal be dispensed with and that it be approved as having been read.
The gentleman, the 32nd, Delegate Haynes, asks unanimous consent that further reading of the journal be dispensed with and that it be approved as having been read. Are there objections? There are no objections. Introduction of guests, reports of standing committees.
Your Committee on Senior, Children, and Family Issues has had under consideration House Bill 2671, relating to financial exploitation of elderly persons, protected persons, or incapacitated adults, reports the same back with recommendation that it do pass, that it be referred to Committee on Judiciary.
The report will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Judiciary.
Your Committee on Judiciary has had under consideration House Bill 2628, relating to the removal of the prohibition on having ATMs in the area where racetrack video lottery machines are located, reports back a committee substitute, therefore, with recommendation that the committee substitute do pass.
The report will be received.
Your Committee on Fire Departments and Emergency Medical Services has had under consideration House Bill 2621, mandating certification for certain members of fire departments, require certain types of training, allow specialized personnel who are not firefighters to be members of a department, and require the postings of fire department evaluations. Reports the same back with amendment with recommendation that it do pass as amended, that it be referred to the Committee on Government Organization.
The report will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Government Organization.
Your Committee on Fire Departments and Emergency Medical Services has had under consideration House Bill 2575, increasing the age limit to 40 for people to test for career fire departments. Reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass, that it be referred to the Committee on Finance.
The report will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Your Committee on Technology and Infrastructure has had under consideration House Bill 2222, prohibiting vehicles from driving slow in the left lane. Reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass, that it be referred to the Committee on Judiciary.
The report will be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on Judiciary.
Your Committee on Banking and Insurance has had under consideration House Bill 2634, requiring insurance providers to provide coverage for certain treatment. Reports the same back with amendment with the recommendation that it do pass as amended, that it be referred to the Committee on Health and Human Resources.
The report will be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on Health and Human Resources.
Your Committee on Banking and Insurance has had under consideration House Bill 2681, authorizing the Insurance Commissioner to transfer monies from the Insurance Commission Fund into the Workers' Compensation Old Fund to reduce any deficit balance of the old fund. Reports the same back with recommendation that it do pass, that it be referred to the Committee on Finance.
The report will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Your Committee on Banking and Insurance has had under consideration House Bill 2682, relating to the issuance of license suspensions to insurance producers and insurance adjusters who have failed to meet continuing education requirements. Reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass, that it be referred to the Committee on Judiciary.
The report will be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on Judiciary.
Your Committee on Banking and Insurance has had under consideration House Bill 2695, consolidate the statutory positions of Director of the Insurance Fraud Unit and Inspector General of the former Workers' Compensation Commission Fraud and Abuse Unit. Reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass, that it be referred to the Committee on Government Organization.
The report will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Government Organization.
Your Committee on Political Subdivisions has had under consideration House Bill 2256, providing that a municipal services user fee may not be imposed on employees of the state. Reports the same back with amendment with the recommendation that it do pass, that it be referred to the Committee on Finance.
The report will be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Your Committee on Judiciary has had under consideration House Bill 2160, issuing identification documents to homeless individuals residing at homeless shelters. Reports the same back with amendment with the recommendation that it do pass as amended, that it be referred to the Committee on Finance.
The report will be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on Finance. Are there further reports of standing committees? If not, reports of select committees. Message from the Executive.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Henshaw presents a communication from His Excellency the Governor advising on February 24th, 2021, he approved committee substitute for House Bill 2358 and House Bill 2359.
The message will be received. Message from the Senate.
The Clerk of the Senate announces the passage by the Senate of Senate Bill 67 relating to authority of Emergency Medical Services Advisory Council.
The message will be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on Health and Human Resources.
Senate has passed committee substitute for Senate Bill 79, providing fair mechanism for adjudication of requests for relocation of parent with child.
The message will be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on Judiciary.
The Senate has passed Senate Bill 89, exempting certain kindergarten and preschool programs offered by private schools from registration requirements.
The message will be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on Education.
The Senate has passed Committee Substitute for Senate Bill 182, authorizing miscellaneous agencies and boards to promulgate legislative rules.
The message will be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on Government Organization.
The Senate has passed Committee Substitute for Senate Bill 270, providing for a collection of tax by hotel marketplace facilitators.
The message will be received, and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Government Organization.
The Senate has passed Committee Substitute for Senate Bill 272, relating to West Virginia Employment Law Worker Classification Act.
The message will be received. Lady from the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent that the bill be taken up for immediate consideration, dispense with the committee reference, and read a first time.
The lady from the 49th asks unanimous consent that Committee Substitute for Senate Bill 272 be taken up for immediate consideration, that the committee reference be dispensed with, and that the bill be read a first time. Are there objections? If there are no objections, the committee reference will be dispensed with. The clerk will read the bill first time.
Committee Substitute for Senate Bill 272, relating to West Virginia Employment Law Worker Classification Act.
The bill will be advanced. Next Senate message.
The Senate has passed Committee Substitute for Senate Bill 275, relating generally to West Virginia Appellate Reorganization Act of 2021.
The message will be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on Judiciary, then the Committee on Finance.
The Senate has passed Senate Bill 296, relating generally to repealing certain rules.
The message will be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on Government Organization.
The Senate has passed Senate Bill 372, providing greater discretion to West Virginia Board of Medicine to approve graduate clinical training.
The message will be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on Health and Human Resources. Are there further Senate messages? If not, resolutions.
House Concurrent Resolution 11, Thomas Brothers Memorial Bridge.
Resolution will be referred to the Committee on Technology and Infrastructure, then the Committee on Rules. Petitions, motions, bills introduced.
House Bill 2760, relating to economic development incentive tax credits.
Lady in the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent that the further reading of bills introduced be dispensed with, and that each bill be considered as formally introduced and referred to the appropriate committee as indicated on the delegate console system.
The lady from the 49th asks unanimous consent that further reading of bills introduced be dispensed with, and that each bill be considered as having been formally introduced and referred to the appropriate committees as shown on the delegate console system. Are there objections? There are no objections. Unfinished business.
Ordering the calendar.
Yes, yes. Lady from the 49th for an update on the calendar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The special calendar, first reading, House Bill 2590, has moved to the House calendar. We're taking up Senate Version 272, which is that bill. On first reading special calendar as well, Committee Substitute for House Bill 2620 has moved to the House calendar. On the House calendar first reading, HGR 2 has moved from, on first reading, has moved from House to special calendar. Thank you.
Unfinished business. Bills on third reading.
Committee Substitute for House Bill 2372, allow pre-candidacy papers to be filed day after the general election.
Are there objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having it read? There are no objections. The gentleman in the 32nd delegate fast to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 2372, under current law, an incumbent may not file pre-candidacy papers until after the incumbent takes office, while a new candidate may file for the office the day after the general election. This bill is meant to clarify that either an incumbent or a new candidate may file pre-candidacy papers the day after the general election. The bill amends West Virginia Code 385E by inserting a new proviso to allow for an individual to file pre-candidacy papers with the Secretary of State starting the day after general election, amends the following provisos, and changes the term of office to the word period. That is the bill. Mr. Speaker, I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Are there members who wish to speak to passage of the bill? If not, those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, there were 100 ayes, 0 nays, and 0 members absent. A majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2372, allow pre-candidacy papers to be filed the day after the general election.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title is read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. Clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Are there further bills on third reading? If not, bills on second reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 11, declaring work stoppage or strike by public employees be unlawful.
Are there amendments?
Delegate Ellington moves to amend the bill. This is HFA Ellington 2-25.
Does the gentleman 27th wish to explain the amendment in lieu of having it read?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Are there objections? There are no objections.
This is mainly a technical cleanup. It moves from Section 1852, which has to do with filling vacancies on county boards, to Section 18A52, which has to do with closing of schools and pay periods. So I would recommend adoption of the amendment.
The question is the adoption of the amendment. Are there members who wish to speak to the amendment? If not, those in favor of adoption of the amendment will say aye. Any opposed will say no. The ayes have. The chair declares that amendment adopted. Are there further amendments?
Delegates Rowe, Hornbuckle, Young, and Boggs move to amend the bill. This is Rowe, Hornbuckle, Young, and Boggs 2-25.
Does the gentleman of 26, Delegate Rowe, wish to explain the amendment in lieu of having it read? Are there objections? There are no objections. The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. You might look to the very back of your bill. All this amendment does is to remove the last section of the bill. And let me just read it to you. I think that this will give you a fair view of it. If an originally scheduled instructional day or non-instructional day is canceled due to a concerted work stoppage or strike by the employees assigned to a school, the school for which the day was canceled may not participate in any extracurricular activities during any part of that same day. And you say, well, what are we doing in that section? I hate to say, I know it's not intended, certainly. We're punishing the students for a work stoppage by the professionals at the school. It might be the kitchen folks. It might be the teaching people. It could be any variety of folks that would have an effect on the continuation of the school day. The problem is you don't just punish the students in that school, you're punishing the students in the other school that would be having that event. And this could happen, without any notice to anybody. I mean, the folks could be ready to play a baseball game or have a wrestling match, maybe 3 or 4 schools to come, and lo and behold, the principal would have to go in and say, look, we can't have any extracurricular activities because we had a work stoppage today. It's not fair. And the effect of it, not the intent, the effect is to punish the students. I urge the members to vote yes on this amendment. And, Mr. Speaker, I'd like the yeas and nays.
Question is on the amendment. The gentleman of the 27th, Delegate Ellington, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Speak to the amendment.
The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Although work stoppages usually will turn into a closure of the school and no extracurricular activities, and that's mainly based by these local county superintendents. And also with a work stoppage, pressure from the students and the parents to maybe end the work stoppage may be important and may help in stopping a work stoppage. I do agree with the delegate and the fellow delegates on the amendment. I think this is really about the kids. That's what our purpose is here for, to make it better for them, and we shouldn't penalize them. So I would be in agreement with the amendment and urge adoption.
The gentleman of the 27th, Delegate Gearhart's recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Could I ask the amendment sponsor to yield?
The gentleman does yield for a question.
Yes, sir, I do. Thank you. Does your amendment preclude those that are, by passage of this bill, proved to be in violation of the law? Does it prohibit them from being the leader of those activities or participating in those after-school activities?
It really just leaves it to the school and to the local board. You may have a major work stoppage and there's nobody available to do the wrestling match or the baseball game. But if we don't pass the amendment, then it's going to be barred automatically. And there are circumstances when it really is mere punishment to the students. So I would recommend that we do eliminate this section and then let folks deal with it as it seems appropriate.
But would you agree that by passage of this, you could have a football coach out standing on the picket line that morning in front of the school who's leading his team onto the field on Friday night?
Well, I don't know. I mean,
is that possible?
It may be possible, but it's much better to not have the section in the bill so that they can make decisions about it. It might be a work stoppage at the end of the day for a half hour or something. I mean, there are all kinds of possibilities. We're assuming that these are major work stoppages that are countywide and so on, you know, and in those circumstances, the individual principals and school boards are going to have to figure out if they should continue to play or what. But if we leave this in, if we don't vote this out, then it'll be automatic, it'll be just, you know, instantaneous and probably not enforced widely. So I think that we improve the bill by eliminating this section.
The bill or the underlying portion of this indicates that school is stopped for that day due to this illegal activity. Is that a fair statement?
That's right. The section says if the day is canceled. It doesn't say in the middle of the day or before the day starts. It just says if it's canceled that day, a scheduled day, or non-instructional. It's kind of interesting. Non-instructional, like let's say it's Christmas time and the teachers have a day where they have to come in for faculty senate. If they refuse to do that and there was a basketball game that night, no basketball, and it affects not just the kids in the school, but the other kids. I mean, it really punishes students unnecessarily, and it allows if we get rid of this provision, it allows the schools and the boards to make decisions and be fair about individual cases.
Do you have any fear that you're indicating that the extracurricular activity is more important than the educational day because the educational day was canceled and the extracurricular activity was allowed?
No, I think those are different issues. I wouldn't think so.
Well, they are. I mean, they're the same issue. On this instance, the instructional day would be canceled and the extracurricular activity would be allowed, which would indicate to me that the activity takes greater importance than the school day.
I think it just keeps us from having really hard cases that we decide with this amendment when those cases could be decided at the school level between the two coaches of the two different schools, the principal involved, and that sort of thing. I just think that this gives us some breathing room on any kind of unfair cancellation of extracurricular activities.
It is your opinion, though, that the individual school board would still have the ability to shut down those extracurricular activities just on the basis of the work stoppage during the day. Is that a fair assumption?
Absolutely, yes, sir. And I think that this encourages them to consider that issue anytime there is a work stoppage. Yes, but I think by not handcuffing them to one position, I think will be beneficial to all, especially to the students.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Speak to the bill there, Mr. Speaker. The amendment, please.
The gentleman is recognized.
Ladies and gentlemen, I followed the gentleman's logic, and I do agree there is a certain amount of punishment for students here, but when this illegal activity takes place, they're being punished during the day by not being in the classroom and accomplishing the purpose that they're in school to begin with. I'll be the first to tell you, it's extremely inconvenient and difficult. I spend a good bit of time with extracurricular activities in the school system. I enjoy being on the football field on Friday night, and some of the coaches may not enjoy me being there so much, but I enjoy being on the basketball floor, working with those extracurricular activities, and it's a real pain to have those things scheduled in and out and rescheduling. However, I do believe what we're indicating by passing this amendment is that those activities are more important than the school day, and I believe that we are potentially authorizing those that are specifically flying in the face of state law, which to me currently they don't have the right to strike. This simply expands upon that and confirms it, that we're telling those that violate that law, that very important law that they need to be in this classroom, that it's okay because the thing that they really enjoy doing after school, that they can be allowed to do with their students. So I would encourage voting against the amendment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Lady in the 51st, Dr. Flesher is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to support the amendment from the gentleman. I think the timing of this is inopportune. I mean, school schedules are so disrupted right now. Why do we want to be punishing students when we are upset with other people for exercising what actually is considered a constitutional right under our Constitution? We may disagree about strikes and how they should be treated, but right now, sports are so important. And it just doesn't seem like the right time to be saying we're going to slap the hands of the students because of something else that's totally unrelated that's happening. So I urge adoption of the amendment.
Does the gentleman in the 36th second row wish to close debate on the amendment?
Just to say, Mr. Speaker, let's let the kids play, and they're not involved in these issues that come up, and I think if we take this section out, we will be doing a service to the school system. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman in the 36th did demand a roll call vote on the amendment. Is the demand sustained? The demand is sustained. The question before the House is, shall the amendment be adopted? Those in favor of adoption will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, there were 75 ayes, 24 nays, and 1 member absent, not voting. A majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the amendment adopted. Are there further amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced to third reading. Next bill on second reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 11, declaring work stoppage or Committee substitute for Senate Bill 12, relating to local health department accountability.
Are there amendments?
Delegate J-Pack moves to amend the bill. This is HFA J-Pack.
Are there objections to having the amendment explained in lieu of having it read? There are no objections. The gentleman of the 28th Delegate Pack to explain the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good morning. This bill requires rules adopted by local health departments to be approved, disapproved, or amended and approved by a county commissioner or other appointing authority. This amendment removes the requirement that a county commissioner or member of the appointing entity be an ex officio member of the local board of health. It requires the commissioner of the Bureau of Public Health to create an appeal process to review adverse decisions by local health departments to ensure a consistent interpretation of the rules. It requires local health departments to place notice in the state register and its website when adopting, promulgating, or amending a rule. It clarifies that if a combined local board of health adopts a rule, the rule will only be effective in the jurisdiction where the appointing entity approves the rule. A health rule currently in effect does not require it to be approved again by the county commission or appointing entity. It removes the public comment period and time frame for approval by the county commission. This would default to how each county complies with the open meetings law. It requires that when the governor declares a statewide public health emergency, the state health officer may develop emergency policies the local health department shall comply with. That's the amendment, Mr. Speaker, and I urge its adoption.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendment. This is the first of our commonly used practice in this House for comprehensive strike and insert amendments to Senate bills for this session. Chair would advise all members that the question before the House is the adoption of the amendment, not the passage of the bill. The question before the House is, shall the amendment be adopted and become the bill? The lady in the 51st, Delegate Flesher, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the gentleman yield to a question?
Yes.
So the way I'm understanding this is the procedure would change now so that if a rule is adopted by a local board of health, notice would be placed in the state register and there would be an appeal process to the county commission. Is that right?
No.
Okay. Explain to me how I'm misunderstanding.
Okay. If a local board of health were to propose a rule, that rule would have to be either approved, disapproved, or amended and approved by the appointing entity, whether that be a county commission, whether that be municipality and a county commission. Whomever appoints the members of that board would be required to affirm their rule.
Okay, and so then, once they take a position, this amendment sets up an appeal process from the decision of the county commission?
I'm sorry, the appeal process has to do with a violation of the health ordinance, not the implementation of the rule.
So
if you were fined for being in violation or allegedly being in violation of a rule, this would be your appeal process.
Okay. So is there an appeal process from the decision by the county commission to reject a rule?
To whom?
Well, so if a county commission decides to do something differently with the smoking ordinance, maybe just tweak it, which I think they would be allowed to do under the new bill. They're not
You're talking about a proposed new rule. We're not talking about old rules, right?
I'm talking about a proposed new rule.
Okay.
If they were to do that, is there any recourse, or is the decision of the county commission final?
The decision of the appointing entity is the decision.
Oh, okay.
Much like our legislative rule-making review process.
Okay, so if it's 5 county commissions, or if it's a combined Board of Health, it would be the decision of all of those appointing authorities would be final, is what you're saying. Okay,
Yeah, yes.
I didn't understand. Thank you for explaining.
Yes, ma'am.
Lady from the 4th, Dr. Zukoff's recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the chairman continue to yield, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you. I just have a quick clarification question as well, because I think this is a little confusing. Is this the process, just so help me understand, currently does the DHHR through currently approve the rules that are decided by the county health boards?
No.
Who approves those rules?
They're not currently approved.
So
I mean, other than by the board itself.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that. So we're just adding this as a safeguard for an appeals process?
No. The appeals process and the implementation of rules, those are completely separate ideas here in this bill. The appeals process is for violation of a current rule. The implementation, the approval of the rule is by the elected body that appoints the board.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Gentleman from the 37th, Dr. Pushkin is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the chairman continue to yield?
Yes.
Thank you. And I apologize. I'm just now seeing this amendment, which is this, okay, we took up this bill, we took up the House version of this bill in committee.
Yes.
Is this the House version of the bill on the Senate bill?
With a few, we did take a couple of the ideas out of the Senate bill, but by and large, it is the House's work product that came out of health.
Okay. What are the main differences between what we took up in committee, the House version of the bill, and this amendment?
Well, we adopted their definitions from the beginning of the bill, and we also included an amendment at the end that was offered in the Senate. On the last page, if the governor declares a statewide public health emergency, the governor may direct the state health officer to develop emergency policies and guidelines that each local health department responding to the emergency must comply with in response to public health emergency.
Okay,
Ours was a little more broad than that, and this is a little more narrow, and we have chosen to take up the Senate's work on that particular item.
This would allow for a little bit more autonomy for the local public health during a state of emergency than what we passed out of committee. Is that a fair assessment?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
This provides for a little bit more autonomy of the local public health departments in a state of emergency than what we passed out of committee. You think that's a fair assessment?
I believe that's fair, yes, sir.
Okay. but it still would, okay, thank you very much. Briefly.
Yes, gentleman is recognized.
I appreciate the the work that was done to this, and while we'll hear about the bill tomorrow, I would say this amendment does make it slightly better. Thank you.
The gentleman, the 30th, Doug Bates.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the gentleman continue to yield?
Of course.
Just to follow up on my colleague's question there, to clarify, does this apply to current existing rules that have been put in place by boards of health?
No, sir. It's prospective.
So it has no impact on what's currently in place right now?
No, sir.
By health departments in counties across the state?
No, sir.
It's just for any new rules that are passed moving forward following the passage of this bill?
Correct. This does not overturn any current rules that have been established by local boards of health, i.e. Indoor smoking, et cetera.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman, the 36th, Doug Rose, recognized.
If the gentleman would answer some questions. I'm having trouble because of the electronics figuring out what the difference is between the Senate bill and the proposed amendment. I note it's a floor amendment, and I was reading the abstract, and apparently that's to the ComSub for the Senate bill, not to our bill or our amendment. Could you explain the differences between the two?
Oh, if you give me just a moment. If the House abstract is in the system, it's not. Okay, I'm sorry. Give me just a moment if you don't mind.
Okay, sure.
Okay, so we are removing the Senate requirement that a county commissioner or member of the appointing authority be an ex officio member of the local board of health. That's not in the House version.
Okay.
And this amendment seeks to strike that from the Senate's version. It clarifies that if a combined local board of health adopts a rule, the rule would only be effective in the jurisdiction where the appointing entity approves the rule.
Okay.
That is, we are clarifying that in the Senate version from the House version. And we are removing the public comment period and time frame for approval by the county commission. This is going to default to the current mechanism by which the counties comply with open meeting laws.
How long would they have under our version?
30 days.
Okay, thanks. Now, I see a provision that gives me concern because my experience with our local health department is very, very positive. They really do a great job. They've done it during the COVID. Their relationship with the county commission and the city are very, very good. So I see on line 12 of the amendment, it says that they could promulgate rules that are consistent with state public health laws and the rules of the West Virginia State Department of Health and Human Resources that are necessary to prevent disease and so on. Does the Department of Health and Human Resources, do they have rules that are specifically identified in this amendment? Or are they going to be developing rules in order to fulfill the requirements of the amendment?
Which line were you talking about, sir?
I'm sorry, 12, 13, 14, and 15, where it says that we would add a new subdivision 3A, and it says adopt and promulgate. Apparently that's not in the Senate bill.
No, that's not underlined, sir. That's existing law. That's just a renumbering, it appears.
Okay. And is there any requirement that they comply with DHHR rules now?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you, sir.
The gentleman, the 32nd, Doug Fast, is recognized.
Thank you. Would the gentleman yield? Is it the intent of your amendment for the emergency powers of approval, lines 36 through 39, that the appointing authority have the ability to approve, disapprove, or amend and approve. I notice up on lines 26 and 27, when it's not an emergency rule situation, the language is approve, disapprove, or amend and approve. But on lines 36 and 37, it's just simply approve and disapprove.
I'm not sure what he's looking at. Okay, down here is intentional. Situation.
That was intentional. One is during the normal course of business for local health departments, boards of health, and the other one is for emergency situations during state of emergency.
In an emergency, when an emergency rule is put into effect, and then thereafter, let's say the county commission is going to take it up, they then would not have the ability to amend that emergency rule that's already in effect, but they would only have the ability to approve or disapprove as it is.
That's correct.
Okay, and why would we not want to give, like our county commissions or the appointing authority, the ability to amend an emergency rule when they're taking it up after the fact?
Well, because we're only talking about a very limited period of time here. We're not talking about a rule that's going to extend into posterity. We're talking about things that occur as an immediate reaction to an event, an emergency, a health crisis of some sort.
But the emergency rule would still be continuing on in effect even after this action by the county commission, correct?
It would depend on how that rule was promulgated.
Okay. Thanks.
Yep.
Does the chairman of the 28th wish to close debate on the amendment? If not, the question before the House is adoption of the amendment. Those in favor of the amendment will please say aye. Those opposed will please say no. The ayes have it. The chair declares that amendment adopted. Are there further amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced to third reading. Next bill on second reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 14, providing for additional options for alternative certification for teachers.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
House Bill 2265, relating to collaborative pharmacy practice and updating rulemaking authority.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2290, initiating the state employment first policy to facilitate integrated employment of disabled persons.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2529, prohibiting West Virginia institutions of higher education from discriminating against graduates of private, non-public, or home schools by requiring them to submit to alternative testing.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced. Are there further?
House Joint Resolution 2, providing that court...
Are there further bills on second reading? If not, bills on first reading.
House Joint Resolution 2, providing that courts have no authority or jurisdiction to intercede or intervene in or interfere with any impeachment proceedings of the House of Delegates or the Senate.
Resolution will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2267, establishing an optional bus operator in residence program for school districts.
The bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2363, relating to best interests of the Child Protection Act of 2021.
The bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2616, amend the reporting to the governor and the legislature to have information continuously available on the Office of Health Facility Licensure and Certifications website.
The bill will be advanced. Are there further bills on first reading? If not, leaves of absence, introductions, miscellaneous business. If not, then lady from the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move subject to announcements that the House adjourn until 11 a.m. Friday, February 26th.
Questions on the lady's motion that the House stand adjourned at 11 a.m. tomorrow? Are there announcements? Lady of the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Rules will meet at 10:45 Friday morning in House Judiciary.
Gentleman of the 10th, Doug Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Finance will have a budget hearing tomorrow morning in the House chambers at 9 a.m. with the Bureau of Senior Services. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman of the 32nd, Doug Fast.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Judiciary will meet tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock a.m., Government Organization Room. The agenda will be posted.
Gentleman of the 35th, Doug CAPUTO.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. On this coming Monday, there will be a public hearing regarding House Bill 2389. That bill is presently before the Committee on the Judiciary. We will have a virtual public hearing. Members of the committee, for those of you that are interested, we will congregate in the Government Organizations Room as we do during our normal meeting time on Monday morning at 9 a.m. For those that are listening and interested in participating in the public hearing, we'll provide instructions on the website and a link that those who are interested will be able to register and participate. Again, Monday at 9 a.m. in the Government Organizations Room, a public hearing on House Bill 2389. Thank you.
Gentleman of the 13th, Doug Higginbotham.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Education will be meeting today at 1 p.m. in the House of Delegates chamber. The agenda is posted.
Gentleman of the 15th, Doug Foster.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Government Organization Committee will be meeting today at 3 p.m. in the Government Organization Committee room at 3 p.m. and the agenda is posted, but make sure you bring your laptops because we're reviewing a bill that's going to be over 100 pages long, so we want to make sure everybody has the bill available on their laptops for ease and convenience of the committee. And also there's a 2:30 caucus of the Republican members today before the 30 minutes before the committee meeting.
Gentleman of the 17th, Dr. Rohrbach.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The your Committee on Health and Human Resources will meet today at 1 p.m. Now that is a change from our usual time. So it's at 1 p.m. in the Government Organization Committee room, and the Republican members will caucus in the Chairman's office at 12:50, just 10 minutes before the meeting. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman of the 22nd, Doug Maynard.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Technology and Infrastructure will meet tomorrow directly after floor session on, to consider House Bill 2002. The agenda will be posted and it will be in the Government Organization Room. So immediately after the floor session, we'll meet in Government Organization Room tomorrow. Thank you.
The gentleman of the 3rd, Doug Fluharty, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Democrats will caucus immediately following floor session in room 252. Thanks.
Are there any further announcements? If not, the question before the House is the motion by the lady from the 49th that the House stand adjourned at 11 a.m. tomorrow. Those in favor will say aye. Those opposed will say no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. The House is adjourned at 11 a.m. tomorrow.